place for you and me. Possibly the best show in the Queen City that's not on TV. Hello, everybody. It is Friday. I hope you guys had a great week and got through it. I can't believe it's already Friday. And that also means it's time for another That's the CLT at 6 o'clock. As we do every week, we bring you a great guest. I'm Tiffany Blackmon. I'm your host and reporter for Charlotte's Major League Soccer team. And like I started saying last week, let's hop on over to the request hotline and check to see if our guest is here yet. Yes. Hello.
Hi. I was late on the request, Tiffany. My fault. I'm sorry about that.
I feel like I'm still learning how to navigate Instagram, even though I've been on it for a minute. So I have to give you the proper introduction. Everybody, I want to welcome in the voice of American soccer on SiriusXM. You've also got a fantastic podcast, which you are one half of a great duo, JD and the Rod podcast. You guys can download that on iTunes. Welcome in, everyone. Jason Davis.
Oh, wow.
I know.
That sound effects did everything, Tiffany. It's like radio. I'm feeling very at home.
Stops. Okay, so I gotta ask you, I was listening to the podcast, this week's episode, which dropped yesterday, I believe. You guys were talking about Game of Thrones, right?
Yes.
I admittingly was like late to the Game of Thrones game, and I tried to binge watch it, didn't get through it, but you guys talked about the MLS team that would be the direwolf. I'm gonna tell you guys, the direwolf is an aggressive predator, or was an aggressive predator. We're ignoring the extinction part. And they had a fearsome bite force, and they were aggressive. I mean, they just dominated, right? So do you think Charlotte's MLS team could be the direwolf of the MLS?
Sure, why not? I mean, it's an unclaimed role right now, right? I mean, I don't want to say that anybody's gotten to that point yet. Obviously, you know, down the road, Atlanta's pretty good. LAFC has done a lot the last couple of years, but sure, why not? I mean, I don't know what it takes. You know, you guys got a lot of work to do to get there, but sure, why not? Yes,
we'll take that. And last week we had Jimmy Conrad on, who had like all these jerseys stockpiled behind us. He was really flexing on us. So you're flexing on us. You've got the Japan shirt on. I think I can see that.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, tell us about that, as well as your collection of scars hanging up behind you.
You know, unlike Jimmy, I didn't play soccer professionally, so I didn't collect jerseys over the years by playing in games. This one was a gift from my wife a couple years ago for the World Cup. Obviously, the United States wasn't in it, so I was, you know, I liked the Japan shirt. She got it for me, I think for Father's Day, something like that. But I like it a lot. The scarves go back. I have been doing podcasts and streaming web shows for a long time, and for a while, people would send me stuff, and they sent me a lot of scarves. I think this is 1/12 of my collection or something like that. There's a lot in storage right now, so this is just a couple of them that I picked out. You know, I think this one, the green one here, was from a charity game, a Make-A-Wish game that Portland did a couple years ago. Someone sent me that one. Jacksonville's up here. U.S. men's national team's up here. I got scarves from Finland. I got all kinds of stuff, so it's pretty cool.
Big flex, as the kids say. As the kids say. I feel like it's not even natural saying that. Anyway, but as we do with every guest each week, you know, what is your soccer journey? How did you fall in love with the game and get into being, you know, the voice of American soccer?
Well, I mean, that's, first of all, I don't claim that. I mean, I claim, like, you know, having a fan's perspective on the game, which I think is kind of interesting. I mean, on the radio, you know, our channel has a lot. We're lucky enough to have a lot of really great ex-professionals, guys that have been in the game for a long time. Brian Dunseth, Tony Miola, those guys. Rodney Marsh goes back to the NASL days. I'm more of the coming at it from a fan perspective, and really that's how I started. I mean, I played as a kid in the '80s. I don't want to date myself too much, Tiffany. But
I'm with you there. I'm later.
Yeah, I played in the '80s, and then, you know, back then there wasn't a lot of soccer on television, none really. I didn't have any heroes, that kind of thing. So I drifted away for a while. I was a baseball kid. I was a football kid, like so many Americans. And then in my 20s, I was always sports obsessed. I started watching the Premier League, and I thought that was the atmospheres were amazing. I didn't really know I didn't know much about soccer beyond the FIFA video games, and I decided I was going to get into soccer. And I started watching MLS. I really got into the World Cup in 2002. I became obsessed with it, and I'm an opinionated guy who likes to talk and write. So I made some stuff. People liked it, and sort of here I am. That's kind of how it worked out. Yeah.
That's how you're on the show. We got to appreciate that. And I think when you look back at your start, like when you began fostering that love of soccer, you've obviously seen a lot of teams enter the league, like Charlotte is now. What are some takeaways just from what you've observed of what teams have done right when coming into the MLS?
Well, I mean, I think Charlotte's more in the boat of, say, in Atlanta, maybe in Orlando, although Orlando had a USL team before they entered MLS, a couple other teams where Nashville is dealing with this now, right? Where there's not a lot of existing legacy. Portland and Seattle, even though they were expansion teams, they had deep histories, went back to the 70s. They had people around who had played on the Sounders and the Timbers when they were NASL teams. So I think for Charlotte, it's going to be a little bit like Atlanta, a little bit like what Nashville's dealing with now, where you really just have to find a way to connect with the community. And not being from Charlotte and not knowing that town that well, I'm not going to pretend to tell you or tell Charlotte people how to figure that out. But it's got to catch the identity, the mentality, the spirit of Charlotte. It's got to be cool. I mean, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know how to tell you. Like, it's got to look like this or look like that. But people obviously like LAFC and Atlanta have done a really good job of making people want to rep that team and those teams. And I think that's a huge thing for Charlotte, is just even before the team ever steps on the field, does this feel like something as someone from Charlotte I want to wear out in the community? I mean, does it go along with the Panthers stuff and the Bobcat stuff and everything else that's in town?
I want to remind everybody too that you can ask your questions. I've already seen two go by. One of them I'm looking at right now is asking you, Jason, when are you going to come to Charlotte and learn about this city?
Yeah, I want to. I've never spent much time in Charlotte. I'm not sure I've done more than drive around the city or stop to the airport, to be honest with you. So it's a big gap for me. So I'm excited to see. I'm not too far away. I'm in DC, so I'm not that far away. I can jump on a quick flight to get down there. So I'm excited to see what the MLS vibe in Charlotte is. I mean, I think the sky's the limit, and I know that there's a lot of ambition with the ownership group, and I know that people are excited. And if you put did I say Bobcats? I meant Hornets. Sorry about that. I forgot about the change.
We let it, hey.
Okay. All right. I was enough of a sports guy to know I screwed that up. So sorry about that.
You self-corrected.
Well, somebody in the chat hooked me up with that. So thank you to those people. Yeah. I'm excited for this. I mean, it does seem fast. I won't lie. It seems extremely fast for all of this to happen. We weren't really thinking about Charlotte, and then out of nowhere, a couple of stories from Brian Strauss, a good friend of mine, and we hear about David Tepper's got ambition and he wants to put MLS in Charlotte. It's like, okay, let's do this thing. If you're gonna talk a big game, you got to back it up, and that's why I'm excited, because I think American soccer needs people like David Tepper who really do want to supercharge everything.
That's the best way to describe what Tepper does. He supercharges everything. And I saw another question go by too, asking, what is your favorite scarf? Do you have a favorite?
I did already mention this one. This is Portland.
Yeah.
It says the green machine on it. I think it says 2013. May 1st, 2013. So there was a really good story on the Portland Timbers website 2 weeks ago or so, I guess right around the anniversary of the game. So what they did was there was a little boy who had cancer, I believe, and was part of the Make-A-Wish program, and his wish was to play against the Portland Timbers. And they put up a mini pitch in Providence Park, and they had a team of Timbers players, and he brought his youth soccer team, and I think 10,000 people showed up. No, they didn't charge anything. It was just fans coming to watch this Make-A-Wish game, but 10,000 Portland Timbers fans showed up and cheered for his team, for the kids' team. And that's amazing. And I got a beautiful letter from a fan of the Timbers who said, I went to this game. I thought it was amazing. I want you to have this scarf. And so I don't have a better story for a scarf than that one. So that's my favorite one.
I'd say that pretty much tops them all. That's a really great
It's
story.
hard to talk though. But like I said, I got Finland, I got scars from around the world, I got German scars, I got all kinds of stuff. So it's and people are been very nice, and it's hard to say, oh yeah, my favorite is the one that person sent instead of somebody else who took the
Yeah.
time and did that for me. So
Well, hopefully when we have you on again, you can swap out the background and then just go get your collection out of storage and just like a steady rotation.
yeah, I should do that. I'm gonna have to get an MLS Charlotte scarf, but there's no name or identity yet, so I gotta wait for that,
Hey,
right?
it's all in the works. People are working really hard behind the scenes to get the people what they want. I feel like you're gonna start like a crazy trend now in our in the chat section. Go easy on us, folks. I did see a question too about what is your favorite MLS stadium?
Oh, I haven't been to all of them. The funny thing about doing radio is that it keeps you at home or it keeps you at the studio. It doesn't. I get to travel for MLS Cup. I get to travel for All-Star games, stuff like that. Providence Park, I've been there, but I was there while they were expanding it last year. I did not see a game there. I was only there during the middle of the week while it was under construction. But that place is fantastic. Just having seen it on TV and seeing what it looks like in person. I think the Sporting Kansas City's place is really fun too. I was there for MLS Cup in 2013. It was like 5 degrees, so it was not the most fun atmosphere, but the fans were loud. It was incredible to be in that building. It's only 18,000, but what's great about a small venue like that is when it's filled and the fans are really engaged. You can't beat it for atmosphere. Yeah, I mean, Seattle is great. I was there for MLS Cup last year. That's 60,000 people. I was in Atlanta when they won MLS Cup. That's 69, 70,000
I was at that
people.
one too.
Yeah, I mean, you can't hear yourself. Your chest is just pounding. You can't even, that was amazing. So, but as much as I want to say I love Atlanta for that experience, I'm not going to call that an MLS. I don't know. I'm going to get into
You can
trouble
do it
with
here.
Atlanta.
This is the safe place to trash.
Yeah,
the
I know, but I don't want people to think I'm picking sides with my Southeastern teams here.
I live there, so I'm doing whatever I can to like distance myself from the ATL.
Yeah,
Hopefully no
okay.
one comes after me.
No, you'll be all right. You'll be all right.
We keep the questions coming. What young player would you like to see come to the MLS?
Young player.
Yeah.
Well, Major League Soccer is not a place where we're going to be attracting the top young players in the world. I do think MLS has a future as a loan destination for some high caliber players. The calendar is hard. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with everything that's going on now, but the calendar is hard because, we're on an opposite schedule from Europe. So if you have a player that's in the Premier League or the Bundesliga, it's hard to have that player play here, go back, and never really get a break. So that's always tough. South America has a ton of talent, and I can't tell you, there's this South American player that I want to see come to Major League Soccer, but we've seen Atlanta and LAFC and Miami's doing it, even though they haven't played many games. Go and find those talented players. I mean, I think you're going to see some pretty incredible things out of the guys that these teams are signing out of Argentina specifically, Paraguay, Uruguay. And I would imagine that Charlotte's going to be in the mix for those kind of players too. So MLS going in that direction is really exciting for me. So I can't give you a specific name because I'm not on top of my 19-year-old Argentinian players, but that's the kind of player Major League Soccer needs more of.
I'll give you a pass on that one. So you talked about being able to travel and go to these different stadiums. Have you walked around like where all the fans are, tasted any stadium food? Do you have a favorite stadium that has the best food? I
mean, when you're working, you're working.
I know.
I have walked around a little bit. I can't say that I've eaten a lot of press box food. So I unfortunately, yeah. I mean, it depends on where you go. I could maybe give you some ratings on that, but that's not going to be fun for anybody watching this.
Probably leave that one alone.
Yeah. Look, I mean, what I like is I'll tie it to local cuisine. What I like is when you go to a game in a town and they serve in the press box whatever that local delicacy is, right? Give me some of your local flavor. Don't give me like boring, bland, chicken or something. Like if you are known for barbecue, give me barbecue. Like that's what I'm looking for. And I hope Charlotte's gonna keep that sort of tradition up.
I think we will. I think we've got some good stuff up our sleeves. This question I can halfway see, but I think what they were asking was, do you have a favorite, or who do you think is the best player in the MLS?
That Carlos Vela is the best player in Major League Soccer. There's no question about that right now.
That was easy.
He might also be. I mean, I think what was a more interesting debate is whether he's the best or most talented player to ever play in the league. Now, I actually think that Thierry Henry is the most talented player to ever play in Major League Soccer, but he didn't play here in his prime. And so, you know, you kind of have to take that for what it is. Thierry Henry was one of the greatest players of all time, but he was already over the hill a little bit when he got – it was still great. He still dominated Major League Soccer at times, but he wasn't his peak self. Whereas Carlos Vela came here at 28, 29 years of age and still had a lot left in his tank. And obviously it helps that Bob Bradley knows how to get the most out of him, that they put a team around him that can feed him the ball, that knows exactly what he likes and how to utilize him. And so I think, you know, right now it's Carlos Vela. But we could get into an argument about Joseph Martinez. We could talk about underrated players like Maxi Morales in New York, who I think is extremely good. You could talk about, I think Alejandro Pozuelo is going to have, if we start playing soccer again, he's going to show something in Toronto because we've already seen tastes of that last year. So there's some really, really good players. I'm looking for those young guys. You know, somebody mentioned who I want to see come to MLS. I'm excited about the young players we already have in Major League Soccer, especially the Americans. And I'm excited about the academy products that are coming through, whether that's, you know, a Gianluca Buzio in North Carolina kid, by the way, Gianluca Buzio in Kansas City, the kids in Dallas, Reggie Cannon, Paxton Pomykal, Jesus Ferreira. You have I'm blanking on there's a couple others that I'm really excited about that I'm blanking on at the moment. George Bello in Atlanta, the left back. So those are the kinds of players that get me really excited.
Someone just asked, is Henry better than, I think it was Zlatan or Beckham?
Well, okay. Henry better than Zlatan. Wow. I think I like Henry better. I think he's more of a well-rounded player, as great as Zlatan is. Thierry Henry was able to make every one of his teammates better. Zlatan's a force unto himself, and obviously he lifted the Galaxy, but they didn't do anything with him of note. It was a struggle for them to get into the playoffs, even with Zlatan.
My favorite is his post about himself. Like he's it kills me.
Well, with all the Last Dance stuff, you know, and the Michael Jordan, you know, we already knew about Michael Jordan, but we did that extra taste. And Zlatan's like, if you don't want to win, if you don't want to be with a winner, don't play. And it's like, well, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like, look, but the guy did win. He won everything there was to win in Europe. So you certainly can't fade Zlatan Ibrahimovic on any of that.
No, you can't. Another question I did see float by too. The best match you've been to? You talked about a couple, like the championship.
My favorite. I think I saw my favorite match. I guess I can. I mean, MLS.
Can you divulge that?
Well, MLS-wise, you know, MLS Cup Finals in front of 70,000 people. I mean, you can't beat that. I don't know that Atlanta-Portland was the best game in 2018, but it was amazing to be in that building, to see that stadium erupts when Martinez scores, when they take the lead, when they end up winning that game. Last year's MLS Cup Final was a fun one. Obviously, it was, you know, different with Toronto and Seattle. But I think my favorite game, and I got to go to this one as more of a fan. I wasn't in the press box. In 2013, I went to the USA-Mexico qualifier in Columbus. It's the last one that we won in Columbus against Mexico because we lost in the cycle for 2018. It was Landon Donovan's final goal as a U.S. men's national team player, and I'm a big Landon Donovan fan. So and there's also this lore around that game because it was 2-0. The United States was up 2-0, and Clint Dempsey was on a penalty kick. The United States was awarded a penalty kick, and Clint Dempsey stepped up, and he missed the penalty kick. And obviously we have that history of 2-0 against Mexico, especially in Columbus. And the conspiracy theory is that Dempsey missed the penalty kick on purpose to keep it 2-0 instead of 3-0 because that's the magic score line, which I don't know if it's true, and I don't think Deuce is out somewhere fishing right now. We can't get him on the phone line to find out. But I love that idea that he was like, yep, it's 2-0, and it's always 2-0.
I just see another one. Wow, I can't talk. Saw another one flow by. They go by so fast, you don't want to miss them, so it's tripping me up. But Bryce asked, how big do you see the MLS getting, and will it be a top 3 sport in the U.S.?
I don't like those questions because I think they're the wrong questions. Look, if we want to try to measure soccer against other sports, I guess there are ways to do that. You can talk about attendance. You certainly can talk TV numbers, and MLS has a ways to go. You can talk about the money Major League Soccer makes from TV, which is still a drop in the bucket compared to those other sports. I think the measure for soccer should just be, is it right there alongside everything else we do? When you flip on SportsCenter, when you watch your local news at night, is the sports guy talking about the NBA result, the NFL result, the baseball result, and then also mentioning Major League Soccer? Or maybe if the MLS team wins a big game, are they putting that first? And then, oh, yeah, by the way, the baseball team played tonight, instead of it always being soccer as an afterthought or not getting a mention at all. And, what I think when we talk about how Charlotte, does well in Major League Soccer, that's one thing Atlanta has done. Seattle has done a pretty good job of it. It's actually amazing to me how well Atlanta has done in helping soccer break through. It helps that the big-name sports owner in town, the guy with all the money who everybody loves in Arthur Blank, is also the soccer owner. That means that all the TV stations, everybody who's got the money in town who wants to be on the good side of Arthur Blank knows, hey, we got to talk about a soccer team. I imagine it's going to be very similar in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's going to be my guess based on what David Tepper has his hands in. So to me, that's the measure. Like, we can talk about top 3, but I'm not even sure what that means, especially since we live in an era where all of our interests are so fractured, where if you have a specific interest, you can go find content on that. We're not 5 channels anymore. Everybody's watching the same thing. So it kind of doesn't follow. Football, baseball, because of tradition, basketball, they're so entrenched that it would just frustrate everybody to say, well, are we going to break through on that level? I don't think it matters as long as the soccer team is well supported, as long as there's enough money coming in to help the league grow and they can spend more on players and that kind of thing. I think that's what we should care about.
Bryce just got a heck of an answer. I was like enthralled by that. That was good.
I do a lot of talking about these things, Tiffany. That's kind of my thing. Yeah.
You mentioned a lot about the national team and being at some of those games. Do you think the expanding, of the MLS is going to be good for the men's national team?
I think as long as the MLS teams are interested in helping develop American talent, then it's good for the U.S. men's national team. I still think, and I know we struggle with this as a fan base, as to whether or not we want our players to all be in Europe because it's a better competition, especially in the top 3 or 4 leagues, maybe 5 leagues in Europe, or if we want American players to be in MLS because that's going to help the league grow, and certainly it feels right that MLS has a strong American character. I think it has to kind of be player by player. It's always up to the head coach to try to pick out, okay, is this MLS player good enough for the national team and that kind of thing. But I think MLS growing and then being more invested in the American player is how it helps the national team. I've said for a while now, whether or not Major League Soccer was kind of in the beginning meant to help the national team, MLS should look out for itself. And the club should always do what is best for the individual clubs. So you can't have one size fit all. And you can't say and MLS shouldn't necessarily be carrying the burden of helping the national team. That's on the players to find the right places for them. MLS should make good players because it benefits Major League Soccer to make good players. If those players also happen to be American and eligible for the national team, then that's great too.
Good answer. I'm just kidding. No, it really is. I mean, it's such insightful stuff because people have a lot of questions about this, and people have a lot of questions about the state of the men's national team. But That's probably a whole other topic, a whole other podcast.
It is. There's a lot. Yeah. We have a great young crop of players coming through now, which I think is indicative of a growing soccer culture because these kids are more in tune with the game from a young age. They don't do what I did. They don't quit because there's nobody on TV to watch. There's a lot of people on TV to watch. So they stick with it. Then they get better. Then they get identified. In some cases, they go to Europe, which, again, it can be great for a young player. And obviously, Major League Soccer is in a place to develop players too. So I think the tide is rising. It's just we had a gap between
Yeah.
our good national teams and this crop of young players because we were still trying to figure out how to start the engines up. So I think they're started now. It's just how quickly can we get back to where we want to be.
Another question, I think you touched on this earlier, was what lessons can Charlotte MLS learn from other expansion teams?
Yeah, I think I saw that from Ryan
You saw
Bailey.
where that came from?
Yeah. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, Ryan.
I think we talked a little bit about this with the Atlanta example. There's every city is different. I mean, I don't want this to sound like a cop-out, but I do think this is true, that every city is different. Every soccer culture is different. LAFC had an opportunity to tap into an existing soccer culture. That's a soccer town. It's a lot of people who bring soccer into their homes every night. They just didn't have, for whatever reason, they weren't Galaxy fans, and maybe you can blame the Galaxy, but LA is a big place. There was room for another team. They did a great job of making themselves attractive to that already existing group of fans who were happily jumped on board. They built a stadium in the right part of town. Those things kind of matter. Atlanta did it differently. There was a soccer culture there, but it wasn't the same kind of thing. And again, I think it was important that Atlanta feel like a big deal alongside the Falcons with Arthur Blank in charge. And I think if we're going to compare Charlotte to anybody, it's probably Atlanta. It's a big growing town in the Southeast. It's got a great soccer community already that just hasn't been maximized, or however you want to describe that. And they've got an owner who, again, we already talked about this, has a ton of ambition, money that he wants to spend on the product. And as long as they treat it as first class, I don't think there's any reason to think that Charlotte won't be immensely successful out of the gate, at least in terms of getting fans excited. On the field is a different thing, and I know they're working on that too.
Sticking with expansion teams, someone else just asked, where do you think the next one should be?
Well, we've got 30.
We've
got 30, right? So we're waiting on Austin. We're waiting on Sacramento. We're waiting on St. Louis. If MLS decides to go beyond that,
we were done.
Wow. I think Phoenix could be interesting, but I don't know how you deal with the Heat. And I got friends in Phoenix who are part of Phoenix Rising, and they're doing a great job with what they've got going on. Phoenix is interesting. I'm trying to think. I think Vegas is. I don't know. Vegas is an
Raiders
interesting
are
one.
going.
Yeah, I would love to go to games in Vegas. They also have the heat issue, that kind of thing. You know what? I see Maggie talking about Mexico City. I know maybe that's a joke. I don't know. But I will say that probably the bigger question is whether or not MLS and the Mexican League are going to find a way to cross-pollinate a little, even more than they already have. That's more interesting than expansion to me.
Dang, that would be really cool. A lot of trips. You'd get to go cover those. You can tell us about the food. I mean, hey, let me be your agent. Just kidding. MLS has been uniting for creativity as part of one of the initiatives, especially going into next week. We're sticking with it. So I have to ask you, do you have a hidden talent?
Do I have a hidden talent?
Do you sing? Is there?
I sing to myself. I annoy my kid and my wife with my singing. I'm not about to sing on Instagram Live. That's not going to happen. Man, I'm a reasonably good dancer too. I'm also not going to do that on Instagram Live. I'm not set up for it. I have the space. It's the space issue, Tiffany. I can't do it.
All excuses.
Yeah, they are excuses. I think those are probably my hidden talents. I guess, I guess probably. My wife is Puerto Rican, and I'll say that, well, again, while I can't demonstrate, I can dance salsa, I can dance merengue. I'm pretty good at that stuff. Yeah, not bad. I got to work on my turns a little bit, but it's not. You'd be surprised. You'd say, "Oh wow, look at him." Okay.
You move. I don't dance. I'm very ashamed to talk about it. I'm tall.
Not at weddings. Not even at weddings.
At weddings, yes, but like I'm tall, and I feel like all my friends are like short, and then I just feel I'm very ashamed to talk about it. So I'll just escape out of that topic to to another topic to transition to. No, but seriously, sticking with talents, do you cook?
Do I cook?
Yeah.
I can follow a recipe. I'm happy to try something interesting and complicated. I can do stuff like that. I wouldn't call myself a gourmet or anything, and I don't have a recipe in my head I can spit out and say, hey, everybody, go make this. But I look, the internet's an amazing thing, and I can follow directions. So I can make some good stuff. Yeah. Yeah, sure. I cook. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, before we let you off the hook, when's the next podcast dropping? And yeah, what else?
Okay.
Up?
Well, I encourage everybody to sign up for SiriusXM if you don't already have it. We're actually doing free streaming until the end of March. Sorry, May. We're in May. I forget what month it is.
I know, it flies by.
Until the end of May. Obviously, the Bundesliga comes back tomorrow, and we have games. If you happen to not be near your television or whatever, we'll have the games. So SiriusXM, go find out how to sign up for free streaming. My show is from noon to 3 Eastern every weekday. So it's American soccer focused as much as we can. We talked a little bit about the Germans and the Americans in Germany because of the Bundesliga. So there's some German stuff in there right now, but it's a lot of MLS, a lot of national team, a lot of USL. The podcast, we do it live actually every Wednesday night at 9 Eastern. It's on Twitch, it's on YouTube, it's on Twitter. It's called JD and the Rod, and then it comes out as a podcast on Thursday. So check that out. We're working on some pretty fun stuff. So check that out. If for anybody who might go back long enough, that's just a new name for the Best Soccer Show. We used to be called the Best Soccer Show.
I was gonna bring okay.
Yeah, we had to change the name for reasons I don't want to get into, but it's the same show. We have fun. It's a little bit morning zoo, a little bit American soccer. We'll make some jokes. We'll have some fun. We take phone calls when we do it live. If you're anxious to call in and talk soccer, call us up. We have a phone number and everything, and we can put you on the air, and it's really fun. So that's where to find me at the moment.
Yes. Jason, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Back again. This was fun.
That would be great. Thank you so much. You guys have a good weekend.
Thank you too. Jason has left the chat. We will post the full interview here on Instagram. We'll also post it to YouTube. You can find that as well on our website, the Charlotte MLS website, to check that out. Hey again, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. That was fun. Hope to have you guys back next Friday. We've got, you guessed it, another great guest next Friday. We'll be putting out who that is next week, but I think you guys will be really, really excited about it. So appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you next week for another edition of Instagram Live of That's the CLT. Bye. This is the CLT, a safe place for you and me. Possibly the best show in the Queen City that's not on TV.